Hello and welcome to episode 69 of Nugget's Dungeon Terrain. In this episode I'll be building a much larger room piece for the Shipwreck Cove series. This is a fairly chunky building scrap of XPS foam. I'm not going to cut it down to 6 centimeters. This time I'm going to leave it at 8 centimeters high to make the cave walls just a little bit higher. After cutting the overall shape in the 8 centimeter high block, I've then cut off the bottom 2 centimeters to match the height of the rest of the pieces. This room will not finish up as a dead end. Instead it's going to have a cave mouth, and this is where the sea meets the cave and the water fills up in high tide. In a game the players could use this as an escape route, but they'd have to swim out into the open sea and around the cliff faces of Shipwreck Cove. The line drawn across here will delineate the lower rock pool and the upper area. The area that's marked with an X and a circle will be cut much deeper. If you're shaping with a soldering iron, it's important to remember that if you're focusing on the tip, always keep an extra eye out on what the rest of the soldering iron is doing, just in case you melt away something with the shaft that you hadn't planned on. I'm building this cave on low tide. So that means that these long strands of kelp, in theory, should actually be pointing out the other way, having been drawn out by the sea. So I sacrificed realism for a personal preference and moved on. I would later on place a small rock at the base of this seaweed, making it look like it is attached to it. Using a cannon recycled from an old pencil sharpener, I painted it black and then dabbed this old pot of tin bits all over it. Basically tin bits as rust in a jar. I then added some more of these small aquarium leaves to look like the kelp had also attached itself to the cannon. You'll notice that later on I took these leaves off because they weren't flexible to move around the cannon and lay on the water top, so I ripped it off and made a barnacle effect instead. I added some sand, a couple of pieces of driftwood, and some other plant effects. Again, you'll notice that I have the seaweed mostly flowing in the same direction, while some of the other plants are a little bit more random. From a small scrap of foam, I cut this arc. I then halved it and started drawing plank effects into it. This was to become parts of ships that had broken up in the cove and washed into the cave. I then added small beads to the driftwood to make it look like barnacles had formed on it. The starfish is made out of plasticine. It was then healed over using tacky glue. For a little bit of variation, I painted this long bead black, added a little bit of a blue to the top, and then some kind of tendrils coming out of it. I then added this rustic axe and some small gold effects to the bottom. After the Mod Podge started to cure, I stuck the starfish onto one of the rocks. I then also added extra barnacles around the rim of the pool. So here's some final shots, but just like the last video, please excuse the fact that the water effect hasn't totally cured.